Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're finally going to talk about Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson, the fifth book in the Stormlight Archive and the ending of the first major arc of the Cosmere. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. We're going to start off with a non-spoiler section where I just kind of give a general review of it. But you know, this is the fifth book in the series, so it's really hard to talk about it for real, without spoilers. So we're just going to kind of do very top level. But then after that, we're going to go right into spoilers, where I'm going to break it down in categories and talk about like each character set and like setting, and then talk about some other stuff. So yeah, with that being said, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and check out the Patreon if you're interested in supporting the channel in another way. So with that being said, let's begin. Oh my God, it's finally here. Oh my God, what what a journey, what a journey. Stormlight 5. Wow. Like I just finished it. Like I just finished it. So I still honestly need time to process it, but I think I can kind of do this first video straight off, but there's going to be a bunch of follow-up videos where we dig into a lot of this stuff. But yeah, this is the non-spoiler section. So we're just going to talk about it like a regular book. So, it's really, really good. So let's just start off and just say that off rip. Like, it's really good. Like, I had mixed opinions about Rhythm of War, and like I've had issues with some of the other like parts of other Stormlight books, but I think this one is just like this is like it is chef's kiss. Like this is beautifully done. Like it is so well written. So I mentioned before in one of my previous videos that I was kind of apprehensive about the way the pacing was going to work out for this story because it's in a compressed time period. But oh my God, that entire worry was just like no need. Didn't have to be worried about it at all. Didn't need no apprehension at all because the pacing of this book is so well done. It's so perfect. Like there is the typical Sanderlanche at the end, but the pacing of it is so consistent it almost doesn't feel like a sudden avalanche. It just kind of it's this continuous momentum building, and it just kind of it makes you feel the momentum that the previous four books have been building, essentially. So you really feel the nature of the conclusion of a series, even though this isn't a conclusion. This is just the conclusion of the first arc. But considering it is a conclusion to an arc, it does need a ending, and it does feel like an ending. This truly does feel like the culmination of these last four books. It feels like the entire thing is a Sanderlanche, essentially. The entire book itself feels like that kind of big momentum payoff that you get from other books and stuff. So that part of it is just amazing. Like just the overall structure of it, just the way it works is just great. Just great. So, characters. Our characters continue to be amazing. I love the fact that we have so many characters at this point, and Brandon still is able to give them all pretty much enough time to shine. We get to really understand their parts. We don't get like a single book arc for every character. Like this book doesn't have like every character doesn't have an entire character arc for this book. Half of them are just continued arcs from the previous books. It's a concluding book and a part of a series. It feels like it should just really be era one, and we should just be able to call it like the end of a series. But I don't think the time jump between the 5 and 6 is large enough for it to be an era, so it just makes it very hard to talk about. But in general, it is essentially a conclusion to an arc of the series. So therefore, this fact that it does feel like the culmination of all this setup, like it works perfectly. So yes, even though it feels like a lot of these characters we're hitting the conclusion to the arc because we are, like the development of it continues. We get to see the proper capstone of the development that was set up in the first few books. So these characters are treated really, really well. Specifically, our main ones, our Kaladin, Shallan, Dalinar. And actually, Adolin and Rlain a lot as well. I kind of expected, yes, a great conclusion to the arcs of the main characters that we started off with, being our main three, Shallan, Kaladin, and Dalinar, which we of course got, but I didn't expect to get, some more characters and stuff wrapped up in there. So we get to continue to explore like the aspects of their mental illnesses that Brandon layers in here, and without doing kind of a terrible thing where like, I feel like in a lot of these situations when writers try to, weave in very realistic things like mental health and everything, they have this tendency to end up curing the situation, just kind of get to a point where like, okay, now we're done with it and moving on. I think that's something that most of people in the fandom kind of had a slight fear of in the back of their mind with this series, was that Brandon would end up doing that. But he manages to like do it in the most realistic way. I need to look into it, like, cause I'm curious about like the amount of like consulting and help he got for this, because there's some things in it that I feel like he has to have gone and got professional help, because like either that or he's just I can't give a single person that much credit for understanding this many complex things at one time. He has to have done some consulting. I don't know, but we'll talk about it in more detail later. But yeah, so the characters are really, really well concluded. Like I don't even say developed. Like they've been developed for 4 books. So this conclusion to their arcs and the semi conclusions that some of the other characters get is just done really well. It feels like we got the exact right amount of time we needed with each character. We got to explore the lingering plot threads and the lingering questions and things that we had about their character arcs and their histories and backstories and stuff. And it just all comes together in this brilliantly clean way. It feels like a lot of the credit can be given to the way Brandon outlines stuff. So a lot of this stuff was the core stuff that he knew from jump before he even started writing the earlier books. So it just feels so satisfying when we get all that development, everything that was leading to it, and we actually get to see it happen. So it's just very, very satisfying from that perspective. So yeah, the characters are awesome. So I said the pacing is awesome, the characters are awesome, and of course the world. Like I love world building and magic systems, mostly because of Brandon's work, and he's like the master of it. And somehow, even in book 5, we still are learning things. We're learning so many things, and like it just expands and opens so many things. And then somehow it still like lets you know that there is still so much more to learn. There is so much more to see and stuff. Like I think that's just such a like brilliant work. Like it's just so well done. I think, of course, the prose and the writing style and stuff continues to be the same as Brandon's writing style. He doesn't do anything overly complicated or overly flowery in a lot of ways. There's a lot of people, or not a lot, but there's some negative reviews of the previous books where people will kind of talk crap about that. Like, you try to make it sound as though he's unskilled when he's doing that on purpose because he doesn't want to ostracize anybody who can't get into books that are written in overly distinct writing styles and stuff. So that's kind of why he doesn't do it. So whatever. But like it continues to be the same here. It's a very easy read, very straightforward and stuff. And I just really enjoy it. So yeah, I think that's about all I got for the non-spoiler section. When in truth is like I haven't been using my star rating much, but this is a 5 out of 5. Like absolute 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. This is brilliant. I have like no real notes on it yet, but I am very fresh off of finishing it. So once I process it, maybe I'll come up with criticisms and stuff later. But right now, I am riding high. It is a 5 out of 5. It's brilliant. I love it. It's awesome. All right, so before we start talking about the characters, I kind of want to talk about some of the theories. So we get confirmation on so many big theories. Like I still need to probably even go back through it a little bit. There might be some other theories that were confirmed that I didn't even notice, but I want to talk about some of the big ones. So the first one is Rlain, as I'm calling him. Rlain and Renarin are officially canon. Like that ship has finally left the dock. Um, Brandon has mentioned before in like Words of Brandon and like just talking to fans and stuff, he's mentioned they will end up together and stuff. So this reveal wasn't a huge surprise, but everybody basically, based on clues from the early books and stuff, was really speculating that they would be together. And I just love how he did it. Like it was brilliant. It was just really, really well done. I thought it was great. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about their arc and their part of the story. But I want to talk about the other theories and stuff that was right. So one of the fun ones that I thought was just people, just talking crap, just joking around, about the Battle of Champions and stuff. Especially on like 17th Shard, like watching that podcast and stuff. Some people jokingly said, "What if Odium's champion is Gavinor? What if he has him be Gavinor or whatever?" We're like, "What?" Like, yeah, he just goes up to the top of your Theru and it's the little 5-year-old kid or whatever. He's got to like kill his grandson and like all this stuff. And it seems like everybody like for a second was like, that would be pretty evil, and we could totally see that happening. But it's also like that would be kind of ridiculous, wouldn't it? Like that's a little too on the nose, a little kind of ridiculous and stuff. So I feel like a lot of people in the fandom like to play with the idea, but didn't really give it a whole lot of weight to it. But holy crap, that's exactly what happened. Except Brandon did it in a really really cool way. So I would have talked crap about it. I would have had issues with it had it been just him presenting him like a 5-year-old or whatever, like kill him to save the world, basically testing philosophies and stuff. but to have him in the spiritual world, after it's been hammered in our head so many times about the time difference and stuff in the spiritual realm and all that, like to have him like just come out, be 20 years older and be like an adult, and then having been trained and raised by Odium in the spiritual realm for the entire time, like holy crap, like it's such a well done twist while not being a twist because it was very much expected, except at least I didn't expect it to happen in that way at all. I thought it was really, really well done. And the way in which Brandon basically is testing philosophies and like pushing people's moral compasses and stuff, and actually, exposing them to their morality to test it and that kind of stuff. Like, I love the fact that he does that throughout the book with like pretty much every character's arc and stuff. It's just a really, really cool through line. It's essentially the theme of the book, really. So it's really, really well done. And I just thought it was like, I was just, I couldn't believe it. I was laughing about it, but I was also just completely enamored with the idea because of how well it works. And the last big theory that I want to talk about has to be my least favorite theory in the entire fandom, and it turned out to be true, and I'm like, eye roll. It's that Shallan's mom is definitely Channa. Shallan's mom is a herald. Everybody was right. It just, I made a video about it because I was talking about how much I didn't like it because it fits too well. It fits perfectly, which is why it fits so well, because it is that is the case. But like, I still don't really care for it because it's like Shallan just has too much, She's just got too many things about her. There's just too many, secrets and stuff about her at this point. It's like it's almost more about the mysteries and reveals of her backstory than her as a character. So it just kind of feels overwhelming to me. And then it also opens up another question in my mind. Why is Shallan the only important one? Like, why did no Spren go after the brothers? Like, I already made mention of the fact that they're broken spiritually, so they would be decent candidates for probably various orders, potentially. But like if Channa being Shallan's mom like had some sort of effect and was like part of the reason for the nature of who she is, then like some of that should go to her brothers as well. But I can push back on that same idea by saying technically Shallan, there's almost nothing special about Shallan, I guess. The closest thing that is actually nothing's really particularly special. Even Channa thought that she was replacing her as a herald, but that wasn't the thing. So even just her having to sprint and stuff, that's just coincidental. Her basically bonding a Spren at that age is exactly as we learn in this story. It's because they thought they could mold her into being like, a great candidate and stuff. And for obvious reasons, it didn't work out that well and stuff. So the lack of Spren for the brothers might really just be they just didn't get Sprens. Like it, because there's technically nothing particularly special about Shallan. She just happened to be the kid that got focused on in their mess of a family. So I'm guessing, I mean, their bodies are made of pure investiture. So, I mean, like, all things can just, it's just matter or whatever. So it can be made. So there's no question as to, her being born from a herald is that special in any real way, I guess. So it fits, it works, it is what it is. I got to get over it. But it feels like one of those things that I feel like it should have greater significance than it does, but it doesn't. So we're going to talk more about Shallan and like her whole ending thing when we talk about her. I want to kind of keep it fairly organized. So yeah, those are the main big theory reveals that I want to talk about. There's probably more in there, but we'll talk about them in follow-up videos and stuff. All right, let's start off with the ones who the book is essentially named for. Wind and Truth. Originally, the book was going to be called Knights of Wind and Truth because we're talking about the Knight of Truth, which is Szeth, and our Knight of Wind, which is Kaladin. So we learn in this book that the wind itself is basically a Spren similar to the Stormfather, but is older than Odium, Honor, and Cultivation, one of the original Spren that were there before the Shattering. So they're still there but weaker and stuff, but because all the changes that are happening to the planet because of the events, they're kind of able to speak again. So they've basically had to some degree had some sort of foresight or something, so they asked Kaladin basically to help to go to Shinovar and stuff, which was already essentially going to be sent by Dalinar. So we get our buddy road trip thing with I don't know why I'm about to say everybody else's name, with Szeth and Kaladin. And it goes really well. I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I did. I thought it was really well handled. I love in the beginning, like when Kaladin, because he is this, as Hoyd has to just say explicitly, Kaladin essentially is inventing therapy. He's the world's first therapist and stuff, which I just love so much. I love the idea of these different things being invented so organically. How like Sabario eventually or essentially invented the idea of Vegas, what he was going to do with the Shattered Plains in the previous books, but I don't, or the war camps anyway. But I don't think that's really possible anymore. But like that whole thing. But I really like that kind of stuff. So in the beginning, Kaladin is like very much trying to like therapy Szeth and stuff. He's very much explicitly trying to help him and stuff. And the way Szeth is just like emotionless, like not caring, like not talking to him, but not being outright mean, but being so terse and stuff, and just emotionless that it comes off as mean and stuff. I thought that was a lot of fun at first. Like that was an interesting dynamic to see, because the idea that Kaladin would be a therapist, you would think that at least in a lot of stories, like they tend to just make it easy. It tends to be like, yes, he's got this ability. Now he just starts to talk, and it just, it works out, and it just works. So I love the fact that there was just so much friction at first. That like Szeth isn't listening to anything. Kaladin didn't understand exactly how to talk to him to actually reach him and stuff. So I just really like those dynamics. But we kind of recognize that it's starting to help Szeth, but it's happening in a way that Kaladin didn't really expect. So like he tries to make stew and stuff, like with the Bridge 4, like the way they did with Bridge 4 and everything. And like Szeth, he thought it was just terrible, but Szeth liked it and stuff because he's got like much more muted kind of taste and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool how Szeth ends up like kind of slowly and subtly kind of like taking in the lessons and stuff, and kind of start to like the therapy essentially starts to work for him a little bit. So he kind of starts to recognize these different things about himself, like you're not a thing, like you don't have to just be this automaton and stuff. So I just really like the way in which the therapy kind of starts to work. It feels like it works in an organic way, because from Kaladin's perspective, he thinks he's messing up, but then he starts to see signs that like, oh, Szeth is actually opening up and stuff. And so I just really like the way that played out. It didn't like have this ham-fisted kind of nature of, oh, now it just fixes itself kind of thing. So it worked out really well, and I enjoyed that a lot. So I love how it continues to progress too, as we start to get into the idea of the pilgrimage and everything, with what Szeth has to do with the honor bearers and stuff. We learn a lot about the history of Shinovar and stuff. We learn it because Szeth is essentially the flashback character in this book, even though I feel like the flashbacks were a fairly minor part of the story overall. But the flashbacks very much were just informative about Szeth's past and, Shinovar and the nature of their religion and how it all works and stuff. So I kind of wish we would have got a little bit of that beforehand, because I feel like there's just a lot about Szeth's past and Shinovar and stuff that we got in this book, and it feels like a lot to kind of digest while a lot of other stuff is happening. I think it was well done, but I would have liked to, gotten to know more about it beforehand. I wish there were more like Shin people that were in the East that were not Szeth. But yeah, but a lot of those reveals and stuff really did work their way really nicely. And I love the fact that when the therapy actually starts working, Szeth's friend straight up goes and get Nail in order to try to get Kaladin's influence, like in order to get somebody to stop him, Kaladin from influencing Szeth. And I thought that was just so funny. And I hated Szeth's friend so much. I was so mad at him. I couldn't stand him at all. I'm like, this is a horrible bond right now. Like, this is terrible. Y'all are supposed to be like companions. Why is he like some sort of dictator slave driver person? Like, why is this happening and stuff? And then to find out he's just behaving that way because he thinks he's supposed to behave that way because of the influence of Nail's friend, who is also mad because of the magical connection and stuff. I'm like, oh my God. Like, and it was just such a complete flip for me, because like when he started to actually speak and we got to know like who was it 12214, I think it is, like we got to really actually know him and stuff. I was like, I actually loved him a lot. And when he actually asked Kaladin for some freaking therapy, I was cracking up. Oh, that was so funny. That was just so funny to me. Just he basically came and asked for therapy, and it happened the way it often happens in media and stuff, where they think like, oh, it's just so easy, and like, oh, you're just gonna tell me stuff that I already know. Is that supposed to help? You're like, well, that's basically what therapy is, and they're like, oh, it actually did kind of work. I do feel like that kind of thing. I thought it was so much fun. And then when they were in the beads, when they were fighting fighting the Lightweaver one, I think, and they were in Shazamar, and Szeth is asking his friend, like, I need something, get me a bead so I can manifest something that I can use. I need some sort of weapon so I can fight. And this dude gives him a freaking spoon, and he's like, you're a creator, Szeth, you can figure something out to do with it. He's like, ah, he like threw it right at him and hit him in the forehead. I'm like, that's so hilarious. I'm like, that's a brilliantly comedic moment right there. And that was right along the time where Szeth is starting to push back against his friend. I really, really like that he pushed back against his friend because, like I said, I had issues with the way they were behaving at first, but then, like, we got to know him, so it just was really, really cool. So, and then after all that kind of stuff happens, like, we keep going and stuff on the pilgrimage. Then we eventually learn that they want to make Szeth into another herald. So I'm kind of wondering what Ishar's plans actually were. Like, was he just trying to replace the regular heralds? Like, would that have actually worked, or would it have like worked but not mattered because of the Everstorm? Like, because it feels like what he was trying to do actually has some merit, especially considering the way he refounds the Oath Pack in the end for a different purpose and in a slightly different way. But if that works so effortlessly, it seems like what he was actually trying to do may have had some sort of like effect. Maybe it has some value to it. I don't know. So it's kind of interesting, the entire plan that they had, but like it was coming from this wrong place because he was influenced by Odium's power, which was causing all kinds of issues and stuff. So Kaladin, I love the fact that we just saw the way Kaladin's therapy, just talking and like, kind of allowing a person to be a person, kind of was helping Szeth, and then to actively try to, on purpose, help somebody else that is much more like kind of damaged and stuff. Like, I think that is really cool because like that is to me that's like brave in writing, because like you have this kind of issue when you're doing therapy with a character like that you almost feel obligated for it to just work, and then like that can be, that can feel less satisfying to the reader. So when it actually works in a fairly organic way, it feels very ballsy to me to then like, let's do this again. Like, so it's very deliberately Kaladin trying to give therapy to Ishar. Actually, to three, he does this three. It's the rule of three. Like, it works with Szeth, and then he incidentally does it with Nail, but like Nail's kind of works because, well, again, therapy works differently for different people. So Brandon was actually able to manage to show that. So I didn't even think about that till just now. So that's really cool. He's able to help Nail out by playing the song and stuff, and the song of the Wander Cell. And this is going to make a great graphic audio. All of the Kaladin playing the flute and stuff, that's going to work really well in the graphic audio because their work with the flute during the first during Way of Kings, and then the guitar with Fleet and stuff, like every little bit of instrumentation that's been in the story they get to actually do. So it's going to be great. And then the idea of the rhythms and stuff, one of my favorite things about it is the fact that they can speak with the rhythms and that kind of stuff. So when Navani speaks with the rhythms, we can hear it like that. And then now that Rlain is doing that too, like we're going to be able to hear that. So like that's going to be awesome. But overall, like I really love the idea that the flute ended up helping. And then when Nail smashed the wooden flute, which makes me wonder if did Wit? I mean, it's probably Brandon, like kind of deep foreshadowing kind of thing. Like, but did he have Hoyd chastise Kaladin about the flute because he had seen in the permutations, probably through fortune or however Hoyd would see the future, that he would eventually need that flute in order to do something. So, like, I'm wondering, because, like, it came in handy. But then when he smashes it and it affects Kaladin so completely, like, I thought that was like, oh my God. But then still turning into a flute, I'm like, that's going to be some good art right there. Like, that's going to be some good art. And it's going to be a fun comparison because there's, like, some Hoyd art out there where he's, like, sitting on the rock playing the flute. And then, like, it'll be perfect to kind of match that art and then do one of Kaladin doing the same thing. Like, oh, I might actually do that. That'd be awesome. I just thought that was just really, really well done. The way the music and stuff helped Nail and it kind of got him to kind of rationalize. And it's interesting because I thought the magical madness part of it would like constantly come back. I thought it would be an issue consistently, but it seemed like when he kind of hit that point of realization, it just kind of he recognizes that he's not well, but he seems to be able to. He seems a lot more stable, like in similar way that happens with Ashar. But Ashar's issue was magical. Like he had to be like all of the dark, I guess void light that must have been what was just adhering to his cognitive self, whatever. Kaladin essentially had to force out the way they had to force out all the void light from the tower. So it was basically that, but with a person. So I kind of understand how he got cleansed more than I do Nail. Nail stayed fairly cleansed throughout. But either way, like this is another thing too. Like a lot of the stuff that does happen in Shinovar, there's a lot of details and stuff that we don't really get to sit in and like really understand fully because the way it's kind of compressed on the other side of all this other stuff. So but I really do think it turned out really well. I love the fact that ultimately in the end we end up with this probably should have went in with my other theory part. A lot of people theorize that Kaladin will become a herald, and he does, but it's a herald in a different way, and I think it turns out really, really well. And also in this pairing, we get two fifth ideals. We get two. So we get Szeth declaring he is the law, and I love how the Skybreakers' oaths are just so completely different and how they can just sever their bonds without even becoming dead eyes and stuff. So they could have participated in the Requiems and like still suffered no losses and stuff, So it's like that's kind of cool in of itself. But the Kaladin's fifth ideal, I will protect myself so that I can continue to protect others. Like that feels so obvious, but it was still so like surprising, but it also feels just so perfect. It's so perfect that it's like, of course that would be the fifth ideal, It's just like all the other ones in a lot of ways. And it's so awesome because like I've thought about a lot of the different ideals and stuff. I've wondered like what the next oath would be and stuff, and I'm always kind of off, kind of in the ballpark, but it's never like the exact same sentiment. But like it feels so obvious that it's like, why didn't I think of that kind of thing, So I just love the fact that I was able to be surprised by what the ideal is, and it makes me. It's almost sad that we get two fifth ideal swears, but we don't really see the effects of the fifth ideal. Szeth swears the fifth ideal and almost immediately relinquishes his bond to his friend. So we get to see no result of that. But then Kaladin swears the fifth ideal, and then the world basically ends. So we don't really see exactly what comes of that. It seems like based on the way he uses, the way he makes a connection to Nightblood and gives Nightblood to Szeth so that he can fight, and he's like drawing off of him. It feels like the fifth ideal means you have more continuous investiture. It seemed like he had like some sort of a source of stormlight on him that Szeth was able to, that was able to feed to Nightblood for a good amount of time before it started to affect them. So maybe something like that was happening. I'm not sure. But also, let's talk about Nightblood. The fact that he was able to learn surges, like which just tripped me out completely. Like, so how does that work? Because Szeth renounced all his oaths and stuff, so he had no stormlight. And he was a human, so he couldn't ingest, regular human, so he couldn't ingest Stormlight anyway. But he was using Nightblood. Nightblood learned the surges from the other Honor Blades. So where was the Stormlight that gave him access to do the lashings he was doing during that fight immediately? So I'm wondering, is there something there, or is that just kind of a yada yada? Did we just, yada yada through it? Or was there something about the, like Kaladin? Like, is there something about wait, no, because that happened, that was even a different instance, I think. So yeah, again, I'm going to have to go back through it. There's got to be some more stuff to definitely pick through for the details and nuances of that part. But I just really enjoyed their arc. I thought their stuff was really, really well done. I love that pairing. I thought the road trip was a lot of fun, and I love the fact that Szeth chooses not to become a herald. He really just wants to stop fighting, and then we find out that Knights of Wood and Truth, the in-text book, is a book written by Szeth's wife. Szeth goes and gets a wife and gets happy. He hasn't, happy as he can be. He goes and lives and has some sort of existence after, and I'm just happy for him. Like, I love that, coming out on the other side of it. I love that so much. Like, even though just holy crap of a life that Szeth has had from childhood, and it's just so satisfying. I just love it so much. And even Kaladin becoming a herald, I expected that to be incredibly depressing because it's like, dude, this guy who's all about protecting and desperately can't really exist without the idea of protecting people, then has to sacrifice himself and essentially suffer to continue protecting people because his life will forever be suffering and protecting. but he get to protect people without suffering, and he gets Syl. Syl gets to stay with him. So I'm like, yes. And I am totally on board with that ship at this point. I'm completely on board because when he's doing that kata early on and they she starts shifting between being a woman and being a spear and stuff back and forth and they're dancing, I was like, that is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like it's so brilliant. Like I'm looking for like an art reference to that because I can imagine it, but I can't really see it to draw it. So I need like an art reference of people dancing so I can draw that. Like it's just, oh my God, it's such a beautiful image. Like in my head, it's so beautiful. I love it so much. So I'm completely on board with that ship. I didn't like it before, but something about her constantly being full adult woman size, and instead of them referencing her outfit being like a girl, like, you know, kind of giving her credence as an actual woman, like a full-fledged person and not the little person companion thing kind of thing. Like it something about that makes it less ewy. So I really like it and I'm totally on board with it. And I'm just so happy because like I was expecting him to lose more. Granted, we don't even really see his parents' reactions to his death because everybody thinks he's regular dead. So yeah, we don't even really get any reaction to them, you know, their reactions or them finding out or anything. But like, just granted, apart from that, like he says his final goodbyes to everybody though before he goes to Shinovar because Wit basically tells him you might not be coming back, and so I'm happy he did that. So we got to say an actual proper goodbye to Bridge 4 and stuff, and he technically had no other links. That's probably why Brandon never gave him a girlfriend for real. And he just, you know, he has his soul companion and he can continue to help people and continue to protect people and like still have Syl. So I am satisfied with that arc. I am satisfied with where Szeth goes. He goes and get a wife and has a relatively normal life, and that's really cool. And Kaladin gets to be with Syl forever while also eternally protecting, while also continuing to get better because they're like off in this like heaven realm kind of thing, almost like what they did in Crisis on Infinite Earths, when Superman and Lois, the older versions from Earth 2, got to go to this paradise dimension when they merged the universes and stuff, but you can't have multiple Superman, so they got to go live off their, you know, life in this paradise dimension thing. That's what it reminds me of. So they're kind of in this paradise dimension where he's going to help them get mentally better. He's going to continue to heal while they're protecting people. Then they're going to go back and they're going to finish. So he says one more final return and they're going to finish everything. So I assume that means Kaladin's definitely going to be a part of book 10 or whatever goes on way down the line. So that's really, really cool. Oh, that's so awesome. Oh, that's so good. All right, and so that's Kaladin and Szeth. All right, we're done talking about Kaladin and Szeth. All right, next up, let's talk about Adolin. All right, so Adolin. Has there ever been a better character? Like, has there ever been a better character ever? Like, Adolin is amazing. He is the bestest of best boys ever. Like, I love Adolin as it is because of Rhythm of War. When he pulled Kaladin out of that room in the beginning of the book, I'm like, you're officially my favorite character, period. Like, he's just such a good person. And then, holy crap, everything he does in Azamir, it's like I would have to recount all of his chapters in order to thoroughly go through it all. But like, holy crap! Like, just the empathy he has with the way he interacts with different militaries and stuff, and like basically making sure he's not stepping on people's toes and stuff. And even after he does, he specifically puts in work to kind of mitigate it and try to help and deal with it. He befriends the Emperor, who he sees as just a sad young kid who basically is, you know, thrust into his position, and because of it, he's got no companions or anything. So he's really empathetic to him, and like really nice to like the females who want to actually fight in battle and stuff. He's doing it in such a way that respects what they want to do while without putting them in a position that's well above their skill level, and like giving, like he's making compromises and giving people what they want and making well wishes and being good, and is a legitimate great leader, and just he's just amazing. Like, holy crap, such a good character. And then like and he just goes through it. He just goes through hell. Like him losing his leg, the moment the moment he lost his leg after that thunderclash, the moment they said his leg was gone, I'm like, he is not getting his leg back. I knew that instantly. I was like, he is not getting his leg back. This is going to be a character changing thing that Adolin is going to have to deal with in the back five, and this is going to be permanent, or he's going to have already dealt with it and be used to it. This is going to be a character part of him. He's going to have essentially a shard peg, and it's going to stay there because he's not. Because so essentially, they basically make the mention of if it settles in your mind and your perception of yourself, then the radiant can't heal it. So I assume that's what was going to happen because the way he immediately starts to adapt to it and practice to it and all this stuff, I'm like, that implies you're getting way too used to it. It's going to sink into your soul and your sense of self, and it's not going to heal. And then we get to the point where Stormlight is gone and like it can't be healed. Like the Fabrials don't work and stuff. I wonder if the rhythm, what is it called? Warlight, I guess it'll be, or Retribution Light, Warlight. I guess Warlight still. But like maybe that would still power some Fabrials and can help with the regrowth or whatever. But I think the moment he heard about that, like that also settled in his soul. So he's not getting his leg back. He's gonna have he's gonna have his shard plate, which he also resurrected. He's gonna have that. And it's gonna, it's gonna stay a piece. It's gonna be his prosthetic. He's gonna have a shard prosthetic, which is still really, really cool. And Maya, oh my God, Maya's personality. Maya's personality. Oh, I love her so much. Maya's personality is so hilarious. I love how sarcastic she is. I love she's got kind of gutter humor and stuff. I love that so much. Because, of course, she's been, in army circles like thousands of years ago, whatever. But, like, that was most of her life. So it totally makes sense. That would be kind of her, style and vibe. So I love that so much. That was so much fun. I thought it was so, so great. And Adolin's amazing. Like, he lost his leg. The way they strategized, the way Brandon was able to actually explain the strategies and stuff and like get into the military minutia without it being terribly boring and annoying. Like I just thought that was really well done. And then the way his arc culminates, I thought it was so well done. When Maya goes off and leaves and tries to go get help and stuff, I'm like, man, at this point we're deep into the book and stuff. I'm like, man, there's no real point. Like there's no point. Like where everything's lost. Like there's no point. Like you might as well summon her and like, cause you're gonna die. Like especially when he was on the shield wall with the pike and everything. I'm like, Adolin's gonna die. Like he's not even gonna try to use his shard blade or anything. I'm like, this is just like not looking good. Like he was going through it. And then Maya comes in with an army of dead eyes. I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. I mean, army, but like we only see 10 really get used. But she so now apparently unoath radiants are going to be a thing. They won't really have powers, but they'll have shards that they can dismiss and summon and stuff. So that'll be really, really cool. And just the line that she has, let's kick some fused ass. I was like, yes. I was like, I just love it so much. It's so cool. It made such a cool scene. It's definitely really, really cool. But like the way in which we kind of get to use Yanagan's past and stuff to sneak into the palace and stuff again, and the legal minutia and stuff about how they can actually hold the city and stuff. I thought that was really well done. Like, it was just such a grueling battle told right. Like every time we cut back to it, it just was more and more grueling. Like at first we were confident and stuff, everything felt really cool and it was optimistic, and then like the battles was going decent and like we were holding our own and stuff. Then stuff started slipping. I started getting anxious. I was like, oh my God, like it was so well done. I love it so much. So Adolin's arc is probably the most straightforward in the story, to be honest, but it's just so good. It's just simply so good. Like that's the only way you can describe it. It's just so, so good. Adolin's a brilliant character. I love Yanagan's development. I love how much we got to know about him. I love all of the stuff that was going on there. And the fact that that's basically the only place where we truly win, the most hard fought battle and actually do hold it, and the Azamir stays even though the entire empire is no longer a full empire, because it never truly was a whole empire and stuff. Like it's a hard kind of middle ground. It's like we lost but we won. It's mostly a loss. The entire situation is mostly a loss, but we can definitely talk about it the next day. So that in and of itself is a win. So I just love the way that feels. It's just in terms of a story at least, because it could have been overly clean. It could have been too easy. It could have been wrapped up way too neatly. But it wasn't. It was done as messy and gritty as it should be, and I just loved it so much. I love that plot line. I love Adolin. He's the best character ever. I can't wait to see him when we come back to Roshar. It's going to be so interesting. and his wife. One of my biggest asks. Actually, is she next? Yes, we're going to talk about Shallan and Mraize next. So, yes. So, Adolin's wife, Shallan, one of my biggest asks, one of my biggest hopes, I think is going to happen. I think. It might not, but I think. So I desperately wanted Shallan to become a world hopper. I didn't think it was likely, especially with the marriage and being a radiant and the way they were bound and stuff. And they're no longer bound to Roshar. So, so I really, 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 really want her to be a world hopper because, like, they also make mention of it with her dealing with Mraize and stuff. And I really love the way that entire thing culminated. Even though overall, I kind of feel like Shallan, Rlain, and Renarin essentially were very separated. Like, even while in the spiritual realm, Dalinar and Navani felt more centralized to the plot and everything that was going on, but Shallan and dealing with Mraize, it almost feels like a separate book. It's so interesting how it just feels like a completely separate situation. I mean, because it is, but it just feels so far removed. At first, when we were talking about Shallan was going to take out Mraize, I didn't think it was going to last past like the first two parts of the book or something. I didn't think it was going to make it to the halfway point, that plot line. I didn't realize it was going to go the entire way. I thought somehow bringing Bayet Mishram back was going to be like the way in which we get the Dead Eyes to be active. Like she was going to be freed earlier than they were going to start waking up, and it was going to, have some effect. But the idea of them going into the spiritual realm right beside Navani and Dalinar, but like having their own little thing, and then having Rlain and Renee. Oh my God, saying their names back to back is going to be tough. Renarin and Rlain go in also was like really, really cool. But I love this idea of Shallan and Mraize. I really love this wrapping this entire arc thing up. Like it's part of her development. It's very much like a mentor kind of person that she has to go deal with. And I love how you can very much feel that Mraize doesn't want to kill her. He really does like Shallan. Like you can tell he doesn't want to actually have to fight her and stuff. But I love the way it works out. Like I love that she doesn't have to like see control to Radiant or anything like that. All of her development is like calcified and like kind of crystallized and stuff. And we kind of, of course, use the spiritual realm to reveal a bunch of stuff. Like the fact that her mom is Chana, and I don't care for that, but I do dig the way it kind of worked out. It makes everything make sense. The entire interaction is very clean. It explains everything. Like, it explains why, like, Skybreakers would have anything to do with their family. It explains why, basically, well, that's the catalyst, really, right? So it explains why she would know Skybreakers. It explains why she would probably, yell Shallan is one of them in that vision and stuff that we had or whatever. So like it kind of explains it. It makes sense. It's clean. But it's just, again, it's too many things in my opinion. But I've already talked about that a little bit. But what we don't learn about, far as Shallan's past, is that I thought that her father's darkness later on was due to an unmade. We don't get anything of confirming that that was the case. So I'm wondering what was up with his darkness. Is there more to that? Is there more going to be revealed later? Because also with her brothers, she sent them off somewhere safe when she basically declared war against them at the end of the last book, and we see nothing of them. So like they're the most side of the side characters that's ever been side characters. But yeah, but I do really enjoy the way in which her going after Mraize calcifies her entire arc and like culminating dealing with the Ghost Bloods, and the way like ultimately the altercation and stuff wasn't that bombastic or dramatic or anything, but the way in which it all ends with her actually talking to Thetacar, and Thetacar basically like, okay, I respect you, but like you did kill one of my one of my Maoish friends and stuff, so like I have an issue with you, but like a lot of bigger stuff is happening because autonomy is messing with our planet right now, and your planet just had a huge upheaval. So we're gonna whatever. This is too small potatoes. We gotta go deal with some other stuff. So essentially, it kind of ends like that, and she's left in Shadesmar. So I really, really hope in the time, because this time dilation thing, I really hope it's an excuse for her to leave world. I really, really, really want Shallan to be a world hopper. Like, she needs to go see that stuff. She's a natural historian. She needs to go see it. Like, she needs to. And you have the Seon, so you can talk in, with the shape of the face for the one that's still on Roshar, and like you can have a long distance relationship with Adolin for a little while. It'll suck, but I would totally be okay with it. Please. Please. Yeah, I think that's about all I got for Shallan and Maraise though. Like that arc is pretty cool. I like the use of the visions. I like the way in which Brandon basically had them go into the spiritual realm with Dalinar and Navani. It felt very clean, and it was a very cool way to kind of accomplish everything we needed it to accomplish. So I just really like the way it culminates. I like the way it ends and like where we leave Shallan, and it gives me a lot of hope that she's going to be a world hopper. It could be so cool. I would love to see a lot of other worlds from Shallan's perspective. It could be so cool. Please let her go to Silverlight because we still got nothing from Silverlight. Like that would be so cool. Ah. All right. So next, let's talk about the ultimate ship, Rlain. Because I'm calling them Rlain. Rlain and Renarin. Because Rlain is actually easier to say than saying their names back to back. So I really like the way in which we get to their relationship and stuff. I like the way we get the development of Renarin more. I love stuff from Renarin's perspective. We really understand who he is as contrast from the way other people see him, and I really love that kind of stuff because he's very self-aware, and other people just don't get him and stuff. So like I just really like that. And the way in which he's this idea of pushing through the awkwardness and stuff, that's such a brave thing. Like I really wish in my younger years like I would have had that kind of mentality. Like could have been great. Like that kind of stuff is really, really cool. I just love that, and I love the way Rlain was basically in the same kind of boat and stuff. And the basically the way they get together, I just like the way it worked. It felt very clean, very easy. It didn't feel like it was overly distracting from what was happening. It didn't feel like we were just taking the side tangent and stuff. It felt very natural to what was going on in the spiritual realm, that their minds would kind of go in those directions, especially while Rlain or Renarin being very much thinking about the idea of humans and singers, getting along together and stuff. So it's like an emulsifier. When when Navani said that rhythm of war, I'm like, your nephew? Yeah, your nephew slash stepson is going to date a Parshendi, and that's going to help. And then maybe Kaladin could date Leshwi, but that's not going to happen. But I was totally for that ship as well. But those are your emulsifiers. It almost worked in the past, as we saw in those flashbacks and stuff. Like so, except stuff, and stuff. We'll talk about when we get there. All right, so I thought that stuff was really, really cool. I just know that they're going to like their arc and stuff. Of course, didn't complete because they're going to be big back half characters. Like I know we're probably going to get a flashback book about Renarin in the back half. So I'm just expecting them to be like Wiccan and Hulkling. Like they're going to be like a super couple in the back half or something. But Renarin doesn't want to be king. I thought he was going to be a monarch, and that was why I was originally thinking about Wiccan and Hulkling. But he's not going to be a monarch. He's basically turning Eurytheru into a democracy ish type thing. But that's either way it go. They're definitely going to be. I really like that vision. The idea of him wearing the singer ceremonial robes and Rlain wearing his bridge for a uniform and stuff. Meshing cultures and stuff. That's another thing I'm actually really excited for, to see the future of Roshar when they're completely like blended culture and stuff, when everybody is everywhere and all that kind of stuff, because clearly there was relations with humans and singers, because otherwise the entire nation of Herdaz, like their entire ethnic features wouldn't be the way they are. Same with the freaking horn eaters and that kind of stuff. Like there has to be more of that. So considering how distracted Retribution is going to be, I think that's a possibility, and I'm really looking forward to that stuff. I can't wait to see the developments of Roshar, even though I think it's only going to be like a 20-year jump. It's not going to be very long. So I'm very curious to compare that to like the way Brandon does with the stuff on Scadrial. So I'm really interested in that, especially since we don't have as many immortal characters. We only have Kaladin, who's immortal. Depending on where Shallan goes, time dilation might help her be pseudo immortal. Um, Sigzil is a version of immortal. Um, yeah, that's why the time jump can't be that far, because we got Rlain, Jasnah, Navani hasn't even woken up from her coma. She might not wake up from her coma. What if she's just sleeping beauty because of the issue with the light and everything like that? That would be interesting development. That way she doesn't ever have to mourn Dalinar. That would be kind of sad. But yeah, I think they're going to be big major players in the back half, and I think it's going to be really, really cool. So that's pretty much all I have for Rlain, but they're definitely Rlain and Renarin. I love that ship name, and I hope it's very obvious to everybody else that that's the best ship name. It's Rlain. So let's talk about Venli. So we pick up again with Venli and all of her friends and stuff. So Venli has brought a bunch of those other Spren over to the listeners and stuff. So now we got multiple Wheel Shaper listeners and stuff. But we pretty much immediately get this. We get the understanding of the Chasm Fiends and stuff. They're essentially like Rashadium, except more intelligent than maybe they're more intelligent than Rashadium, but they're just generally intelligent, and it was a perception thing, and they're actually just really cool creatures. Like a lot of the creatures on Roshar have basically evolved in such a way where they're symbiotic with all the other species on the planet and stuff. So they probably could have been just cool and chummy a long time ago, and they can harvest gem hearts when they naturally die and that kind of thing. So it just worked out really well, and it seems very naturalistic the way it worked out. So that explanation worked really well for me. But the way we immediately get them going straight to the Shattered Plains, I was wondering what was going to happen with that, because we have the entire battle that's happening over there, and they're like going to see something. I'm like, well, at least this is probably going to tell us how the plains are shattered, and they didn't even tell us how the plains are shattered through that arc. I thought that was funny. We find out from something else entirely. We find out because it was in the spiritual realm. We find that out. I thought they were going to eventually find it out, but I'm assuming because of the way in which when Odium and Honor clashed before, and they hit Earth, they hit Roshar and obliterated the kingdom that was there and shattered the plains. I'm wondering if that action is the thing that caused the pool to be under the shattered plains, or if that was just going to be where Odium's power permeated anyway, because it starts to permeate there later on, as retribution. So I wonder if that was just naturally going to happen regardless. But so that's what shattered the plains. Odium and Honor fought for a little bit, had a little slap fight, and it caused that much destruction on the planet. And it's less interesting than a lot of people's theories. A lot of people were thinking the Dawn Shards were there. That's where the humans landed, and all kinds of stuff like that. That wasn't the case, but I like the explanation. It works for me. But this idea that Venli and the other listeners signed a treaty with Jasnah, essentially causing them to incidentally secede the Shattered Plains to the listeners. So they're in alliance. They have a treaty with the humans, but now they actually have that land because the Oath Gates don't work anymore. So the area that was, going to be New Kolinar is basically going to be New Listener Kingdom and stuff. So that's going to be really cool. I'm really interested in that idea. But like that battle also was lost. So let's go ahead and talk about Sigzil and his entire arc, because holy crap. So Sigzil being the leader of the Windrunners and stuff is like, wow, wow, wow. Like it's really, really well done. I love the development of the way we see him very much unsure of himself, not believing that he should be a leader and stuff like that. He just wants to be a stuffy little scriber and stuff, or scribe and, scholar or whatever. But he's thrust into this position and basically has to deal with it and everything. And I love he takes to it like a fish to water. He does a really, really good job at it because of course he's taught by Kaladin, so he's really good at it. And he's got these great strategies because he is very smart and tactical and stuff like that. So he comes up with these great plans and ideas and stuff, and they all work. But like the forces that are laid against him is just too much, and like they really can't actually hold out for too long. Like all his plans work, his strategies and stuff work, but there's still just so many coming after them. And then Moash jumps in and freaking causes all kinds of issues and stuff, and kills Leighton and kills Leighton's friend. And like, oh my god. So I guess we'll talk about Moash too, but I'll talk about him after this. Actually, no, it's fine. Talk about so Moash. So he kills Leighton, and then like it sucks, but like this entire thing that they did with Moash apparently isn't getting his conclusion until the back five, which I didn't really expect because he's so related to Kaladin. I expected some sort of something, but he's essentially been made into an Inquisitor. I don't like that, but I do like the fact that that was possible and that Odium knew about that capability. But I really just wanted him to have his eyes melted and to like have to go be a beggar and wanderer and just wander Roshar until a thunderclap falls on him and he dies. Like I just wanted something like that to be his mild bit of retribution, his mild bit of redemption or whatever. But like him becoming just he's just new boss, same job. Instead of being emotionless, now I'm mad all the time. Like at this point, he's a little one note, in my opinion. Like, the fact that his arc doesn't end with Kaladin killing him, and actually, I guess no, it's possible. Depending on what new Odium does with him, he can make him some sort of fused or something, and maybe they'll have their final confrontation later. But I'm not entirely sure. But Moash basically is barely an entity in this. He shows up and like, hey, I'm still here. Let me kill one of your friends and cause an issue. And he almost kills Sigzil. And the interesting thing is, Leighton has a death rattle that says Sigzil is going to die by Moash's hands, basically on the Shattered Plains. It's like a very clear prediction and stuff. And then when that moment comes where you think Sigzil is going to die, well, we know he's not going to die if you've read the Secret Projects. But we think that he was basically going to die. Then he basically renounces his oaths in order to save his friend, and his friend leaves, and then he doesn't die. So I'm wondering if that just means the same that, all the other stuff means, that future sight isn't permanent. It can be changed, it can be altered and stuff. So therefore the death rattles can be modified heavily. So that one will just get, completely dusted. Or is Sigzil going to come back to Roshar at some point in the future, and a pseudo fairly immortal version of Moash is going to kill him? I'm wondering if something like that. Are we going to roundabout it? Are we going to, come back around that way? Kind of like the idea that Renarin actually brings up. He was thinking that maybe Dalinar still does become the, work for Odium or whatever. And that original vision he saw just happens later, It could be something like that. But that didn't happen, so maybe this won't happen either. So this Sigzil's arc in the Shattered Plains also, spoilers for Secret Projects too. So if you haven't read any of the Secret Projects, just jump past this part. Just skip ahead a minute or so, if you haven't read it. But this just makes it very clear, spoiler, this just makes it very clear that Sunlit Man essentially happens. It happens probably even after the back five, but this is where it happens. This is where Sigzil gets his Dawn Shard, his torment, and we kind of understand it in context of Sunlit Man. So I'm about to basically start Sunlit Man again. I have to reread that now almost immediately. So that's really cool. I love the Cosmere, expandy kind of bit that does with that. So that part is a lot of fun. So yeah, let's go ahead over to the next one. Let's talk about Jasnah. Holy crap. Holy crap. Oh my God. That has to be the most intense conversation I've ever read in my life. That is the most intense conversation there has ever been. I have never been so shook from a conversation before. Like, that is some class A writing. That is top tier. Because it is very hard to write a character that is supposed to be inordinately intelligent. So Jasnah is incredibly smart, and then a shard, Odium, is divinely intelligent. So as a regular person, how do you write that and convey that in these characters in an effective way for your reader? That is hard to do. And Brandon manages it. So at first I was very much conscious of that idea when we were kind of going through the early parts of the argument and stuff, when they were tit-a-tat and going back and forth and stuff, and Jasnah very much had the upper hand. So I was very much in that mindset. But then when she got confident, and then when she just started talking, I very much just fell right into what she said. I was just, yep, I'm just right there behind her, yep, yep. And then, it didn't even hit me until, it hits her, oh, that's the trap. He got you. Oh my God. That is the best way to win an argument. It's I don't have to lie. I don't have to get you to lie. I'm going to just prove that your morality and the truth that you believe means that she has to side with me. And I'm you can't argue with it. It's so well done. It's so brilliant. You can't argue with it. But you can technically argue with it, because I would have basically told her, divorce context from everything he's saying. This is still a dark god that is going to conscript your people and send them to war in the rest of the universe. Regardless of what he's saying, regardless of any of that other stuff, that is still the truth. I'll make a deal. But you can also renege on those deals too, especially now. Are any of those deals even canon, because his retribution is, I guess, at least half of his power would still be beholden to those contracts or something? Either way, I would have probably tried to fight harder about that conversation. But holy hera, that is just the most awesome conversation ever. I can't, that is so cool. And just as a structural thing, I really love the fact that we kind of hinge everything on these three battles, right? And Brandon has them feel very different. So the Shattered Plains, very unique kind of terrain, very specific type of people. Like we have more of the radiance. That's where a lot of the windrunners and stuff are. Like we have specific types of powers that are being used there in the specific type of terrain that's being used there. Then we're in Azamir, where there's very few radiance and it's very much just kind of a pitched battle. It's very much just regular classic kind of fighting and stuff like that. And it's just very grueling and very much pit maneuvers and stuff like that, and pike formations, shield walls, and all that kind of stuff. And then we go over to Thalana, where we're expected to be some sort of naval to land kind of battle, but then there's no battle at all, and it's just like a feint and stuff like that. And then it's so unique. Each one of the three is unique. It doesn't feel like carbon copy battles. They're completely different with different outcomes and have different implications. So that's just really, really well constructed in my opinion. I thought that was perfect. And then the fact that Jasnah's situation hinges on an intellectual conversation, and then her moral framework, her moral philosophy, her own sense of self is the thing that causes her to lose, is brilliant. It's brilliant on Odium's part. It's brilliantly written by Brandon, and it's just so perfectly culminated in the scene. I just thought it was so magnificent. It's just done so well. I love it to death. It's just it's so good. I hope more people like have the cojones to do something like that, because that of the entire book, as intense as some of the parts of the book get, as as much as you're like biting your fingernails and like very much clenching and stuff, trying to see what's going to happen. The only part of the book I felt true anxiety and like fear is in that conversation. That is the most significant piece of the book for me. Like that, my heart was like going, because I'm like, oh my God, like you are so cornered. Like it was just so well done. That is the absolute best part of the book. I love it to death. It is so great. So good. Perfect. So let's talk about what is probably the bulk of the book. Dalinar and Navani in the spiritual realm, going through the histories and stuff, learning everything. We know all the things now. So we know how humans got to Roshar. We still don't know specifically what they did, how the atmosphere and stuff caught fire on I can't pronounce the other name, but on Ashen. But we do see the giant Else Gate, so that's the way in which Else Callers will teleport. They make Else Gates, they make portals, and they can't just inherently teleport. And apparently it's very difficult to do, and Jasnah's the only Else Caller, so for 5 books we get 0 person with a POV chapter doing it, which sucks, which means it better be huge in the back half. That's my thought. Because I love teleportation as much as I love flying, and I really, really, really need to see some teleporting. Brandon, please. If anybody can figure out how to make teleporting not OP, I think Brandon can. But the fact that he made them gates, Else Gates, reminds me of what he did at the end of Wheel of Time, and I'm wondering if that's going to happen, if that's going to be a power set type situation. But, so yeah, we know all the things. So humans come to Roshar. The Rosharans, the singers had like an entire life and situation going, like pretty much like we know, we just kind of got to visualize. But the big takeaway from this entire situation that I learned is that Honor was a dick. Like I didn't expect that at all. Honor was a dick. And then it also led me to the conclusion, of course, that because that's what I think Brandon wanted us to realize, any of these shards divorced from their context are not good. They're ultimately going to end up negative. There is no way to be a benevolent God when you're divorced from the context that makes you capable of benevolence. Like it's just not, the powers won't allow it, no matter what the person tries to do. So even Honor himself, who we thought based in context that he was probably pretty fine, like he was probably decent, but like he was basically like Nail. He was that entire interpretation kind of, but like in a slightly more petty way. Like it felt like very much like a high school rivalry. Like Tana and Reyes like didn't like each other back in high school. They both become gods, and like Reyes is over here just, he's doing bad stuff, but he's over there, and Tana is just like, I'm gonna go tell. I'm gonna go. Like he's like the one like that. I gotta go fix this. I gotta go do something about him. Like and Korra's like we don't have to deal with none of that. Like we can go somewhere else. Like we don't have to deal with any of that. We know what he's doing is bad. Like we shouldn't be all about it and all that stuff. But like we don't have to deal with it, or we can deal with it. But let's be subtle about it. Let's be careful. Let's be draconic about it because she's a dragon and she's awesome. Like but no, he just had and like he essentially caused his own doom by doing all of that stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, it makes so much sense. And I love the context. I love the way in which we get a completely shifted perspective of these characters, including the Stormfather. It works really, really well. But I'm like, man, I just love the workings and the machinations and the minutiae of the world and the way it works. And Brandon's idea of humanity versus divinity and the way in which they can intersect in this way, I think is really, really cool. And it says so much about human philosophy and psychology. That's why I think Brandon has to have like a lot of consultants, because like his understanding of therapy and psychology and rationality, and I mean, granted, it's probably from his religious background and the way in which he thinks about divinity, but like that stuff, I feel like he has to have so much back research on this stuff. You got to be kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, to like be able to pull all these concepts in and create a narrative that explains it in such a nice way. Like it's so well done. I love it so much. I have to, this is, again, I just finished it, so I'm very fresh off this story. So I want to say I like it more than Words of Radiance, which is a huge statement for me, but at this moment, I do. At this moment, it's just because I love a great conclusion anyway, and this is not even a total conclusion, but it's mostly a conclusion, and it's just great. It's just so, so good. So that's pretty much that's almost everything that I have to say about the story. Just for now at least, my initial thoughts. But I do kind of want to talk about Terravodium a little bit, right? So I thought I was slightly afraid because when you create a new villain and stuff like this in stories, like when you try to replace the other villain, sometimes it doesn't, live up to the expectations. Sometimes you'll be like, oh, the other bad guy was much more interesting and more fun and dynamic, and he was more mustache twirly fun. But like to make Terravodium, to make Terravangian Odium, to make Terravodium, like you're setting up a promise. You're promising us something, right? So the fulfillment of that promise was handled so beautifully. Like it was so perfect. I adored it so much. Like I was afraid of him. He felt inevitable. He felt like you couldn't outmaneuver him, outsmart him, anything like that. I think it was just done so, so well. It was so perfectly done. The promise was definitely kept. The build-up was definitely well worth it. The payoff was brilliant. And somehow, this feels like a complete ending. I feel completely satisfied while also still feeling hyped for the back five, because he set up so many interesting threads that, like, the entire world is going to be different. Like, when we come back, it's going to be completely different. So I am very much like, I want to let Roshar rest for a little bit. And I am eager to come back to it to see how it's changed. So this break between 5 and 6, I am okay with it. I expect it to be very much like in a mourning kind of mood, but I am very much okay with it because it's going to feel like in real life the time difference between the characters. So when we go back to it, it's going to be like, oh, hi, Roshar. Oh, look how you've changed. It's going to be that kind of thing. And then the stuff that we've done in this story has implications for the rest of the Cosmere that I'm like, yes, Roshar, you sit there. We'll come back to you. What's going on over there? Let's go see what happened. What are the repercussions of this? Because everybody's aware of it. Everybody's ears are perked. Everybody's like, what's happening over there? So everybody's getting ready. And the conversation, the fact that Era 2 takes place right after this, it's like right after this. So the fact that that happens right after means that the conversation that Kelsey, so just spoilers, some more spoilers. Sorry, yeah, spoilers for Era 2. I just want to kind of say something about Era 2. So spoilers for Era 2, spoilers for all of Era 2, specifically Lost Metal. Spoilers. So yeah. So based on the conversation that we see happens between Kelsier and Sazed at the end of Lost Metal, that happens shortly after this. So Autonomy is immediately messing with Scadrial as soon as Hoy goes over there. So he has to deal with that. We deal with that and it wraps up. So he is begging for more help and more power to deal with the war. So that means that when Kelsier is saying this to Sazed at the end of that, the war is a lot more active at that point than we originally thought. Because I thought it was still leading up to the breakout of it, but at this point, that's why Autonomy made that move. That's why Autonomy made such an aggressive move on Scadrial, because she needs warriors. She needs other people. She needs sources of investiture because freaking Retribution is out there and it's about to go down. So I am so hyped. I am elated. I am ready for Era 3 like nothing else. I am ready for Eyes of the Ember Dark. I'm about to reread Sunlit, man. Like, I am just hype, beyond hype, so hype. So good. 10 out of 10 stars. Love the book. Best thing in the Stormlight Archive right now. Best thing in the Cosmere. Brandon, 10 out of 10. Love it. Thank you. Thank you so, so much. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up that initial ramble session. This is my main primary review of Wind and Truth. We will have some supplemental videos where we dig into some of the other minutiae and nuances of the story, and we'll talk about those later, and we'll probably do some art videos where we're fan arting and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you stick around the channel for that. Well, first, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and if you're interested in supporting the channel in another way, you can check out the Patreon. The link is in the description. So with that being said, let me know in the comments down below. Full spoilers in the comments, but if sorry, be respectful if you can in the comments. But I am ready to talk about this. Let's rant, let's ramble, let's speculate, let's talk about it. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I will talk to y'all next time. Peace.